Hello, dear friend. As you close your eyes and let your breath slow, I invite you into a quiet space, one where worries loosen their grip, and the noise of the world fades into stillness. You are safe here, you are seen, and you are deeply loved. Life often feels like a long, uncertain journey. We find ourselves reaching for peace in chaos, for purpose in the ordinary, for hope in the middle of heartbreak. So many voices around us promise happiness through success, wealth, comfort, or control. But have you ever wondered, what does it truly mean to be blessed? Is it possible that real blessing has nothing to do with what we have, and everything to do with the posture of our heart? Tonight, we turn to one of the most beautiful and challenging teachings ever spoken, words that have echoed through centuries, whispered into the hearts of both the broken and the bold. We will step gently into the hillside moments where Jesus sat among a crowd and revealed what it means to live in the light of God's kingdom. The world tells us, strive, win, stand tall. But Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, the meek, the peacemakers. The world rewards those who take, conquer, and rise. But Jesus blesses those who mourn, those who hunger for righteousness, those who are persecuted for doing what is right. It's upside down. It's uncomfortable, and yet it's breathtakingly beautiful. Why does this matter to us today? Because these words from the Sermon on the Mount speak directly to the heart of our struggles. Whether you feel weary, unseen, or unsure of your place in this world, Jesus offers a blessing, not because you've earned it, but because His grace meets you exactly where you are. This message is not just ancient wisdom, it is an invitation to slow down, to listen deeply, and to discover a way of life that heals, restores, and sets your soul at peace. So, as we reflect together on these sacred words, let them sink gently into your heart. Let go of pressure, let go of striving. Tonight is not about about receiving. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to pretend to be strong. You only need to come, just as you are, because in this place of quiet honesty, God whispers, you are already blessed. The morning air was crisped on the hillside above Galilee. The sun rose quietly, casting a soft golden light across the sea and over the gathered crowd. They had come from every corner: Judea, Jerusalem, the Decapolis, and beyond. Some limped from long journeys. Some came with questions. Others came with wounds too deep for words. Jesus looked at them, not just with His eyes, but with His whole heart. He saw the hungry, the broken, the overlooked, and instead of offering power or prosperity, He offered something far greater: blessing. He sat down, and in that simple act, time seemed to pause. Blessed are the poor in spirit, He began, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It was not a call to strive upward, but an invitation to look inward. The poor in spirit, those who knew their need, who didn't hide behind pride or self-sufficiency, were the very ones closest to heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. These were not empty words. They were a balm to those grieving lost homes, broken families, or unmet hopes. In every tear shed, Jesus promised the nearness of God's comfort. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth, not the aggressive or loud, not those who forced their way to the top, but the gentle, those who waited with quiet strength, trusting in God's timing. To them, the world would be handed as a gift. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. He spoke to those tired of injustice, to those whose souls ached for what is good and true. Their hunger was holy, and their longing would not go unanswered. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. A hush fell over the crowd. Mercy was rare. In a world of vengeance and judgment, this was a radical call to forgive, to let go, to reflect the heart of God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Not just with eyes, but with the soul. Those who loved sincerely, who lived without hidden motives, they would glimpse the very face of the divine. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. In a land torn by tension and conflict, peacemaking was a dangerous path, yet Jesus honored them not as passive observers, but as active bridge builders, bearing the family resemblance of their Father. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This blessing fell like a quiet storm. It was both warning and comfort. Choosing the way of truth would not be easy, but the reward was eternal. As Jesus' words hung in the air, hearts stirred. These blessings weren't instructions to earn something. They were declarations of grace gifts, freely given to those the world often overlooks. No one left unchanged. The poor in spirit stood a little taller. The mourners felt something shift inside. The meek found strength. The hungry tasted hope. And though the hillside remained the same, something holy had settled over it like morning dew, like a breath of heaven. As the crowd slowly dispersed from the hillside, many walked in silence. They had heard something they couldn't unhear. Jesus' voice still echoed in their minds, not just the words, but the spirit behind them. It was unlike any teaching they had known. A mother held her child closer as she walked. She had mourned the loss of her second baby just months before. Blessed are those who mourn, Jesus had said, for they will be comforted. Could it be true? Could blessing live within sorrow? Her eyes stung, but this time it wasn't just pain. It was something softer, a strange, holy comfort. A young man stood still, watching the others go. He had been angry for so long, angry at Rome, at injustice, at how powerless he felt. But when Jesus spoke of the meek inheriting the earth, it unsettled him. He had always believed strength came through force. But here was a new kind of strength, grounded, patient. Could meekness really carry more weight than rage? Nearby, a tax collector lingered in the back. He wasn't used to blending in, but he also wasn't used to being welcomed. When Jesus said, "Blessed are the merciful," he felt a lump rise in his throat. He had lived without mercy for years, taken what wasn't his, turned away from those in need. Could he change? Could mercy be extended to him, even now? Further down the hill, two friends whispered to one another, "Do you think he really meant it?" One asked, "To be persecuted and still be blessed." They had seen what happened to prophets before, the cost of truth. Still, something in Jesus' eyes made them believe. It was worth it. A teenager tugged at her father's sleeve. "Papa," she said, "what did he mean when he said the pure in heart will see God?" The father knelt beside her, unsure how to answer. But in that moment, as he looked into his daughter's eyes, something stirred. Perhaps purity wasn't about perfection, but about openness, about longing to see. And there were others, a widow, a shepherd, a soldier off duty. Each one carried a beatitude home knot in their hands, but in their hearts, the words were too alive to forget. They demanded more than agreement. They asked for transformation. In the following days, people found themselves thinking differently. A merchant offered extra bread to a stranger. A boy apologized before his pride could speak first. A woman who had been silent in grief finally allowed herself to cry, not because they had figured it all out, but because they had heard a voice that made them believe that being lowly was not the same as being lost, that the world's definition of blessing was not the only one, and maybe, just maybe, there was another kind of kingdom quietly rising within them. The kind of kingdom where the broken are beloved, where mercy is strength, and where peace begins with one changed heart at a time. In the days after Jesus' teaching, his words began to take root not as distant philosophy, but as a quiet revolution in the hearts of those who had listened. "You are the salt of the earth," he had said. "You are the light of the world." These were not instructions. They were identities. For the fisherman who spent nights pulling in empty nets, the words felt strange. He had never seen himself as anything more than ordinary, but salt, light. Could it be that something in him held purpose beyond survival? He began to notice small things. How a kind word calmed a tense argument in the village. How sharing a meal softened a hardened heart. Was this what it meant to preserve goodness? To shine light where darkness had settled? A young woman in the marketplace remembered Jesus' voice each time she was tempted to gossip or judge. "You are the light of the world," it echoed. So she chose silence instead of slander, peace instead of poison. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And slowly, her community felt safer, warmer like morning sun breaking through fog. But it wasn't easy. One man tried to live with mercy among merchants who mocked him. He gave fairly, even when cheated. He forgave offenses, even when they cut deep. Some called him weak, others called him foolish. And yet, he felt a quiet strength grow within, resilience born not of pride, but of trust. Salt doesn't shout. Light doesn't argue. They simply exist, and in doing so, they change everything around them. Still, there were moments of confusion. What if I fail? One woman asked her husband, "What if I can't live up to all he said?" He smiled, gently. "Maybe being light isn't about being perfect. Maybe it's about staying close to the source." They began to see that living the Beatitudes was not about ticking off a list of virtues. It was a posture, a way of being. To hunger for righteousness was to admit you hadn't yet arrived. To show mercy was to remember how often you needed it yourself. To make peace was to stand between enemies, arms wide open, heart exposed. Some nights they gathered and prayed not with eloquent words, but with open hearts. "Lord, make us salt again when we lose our flavor. Help us shine even when we feel small. Teach us to live this kingdom way, even when the world pulls us another direction." And slowly, the village changed. Not all at once, not loudly, but deeply. Children learned to apologize. Neighbors began to trust. Widows were not left alone. The proud sat beside the poor. Because when even a few choose the way of blessing, the whole world begins to taste the difference, to see the glow dot and in the quiet, faithful lives of ordinary people. Jesus' sermon kept unfolding, not just as words remembered, but as lives transformed. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting long shadows over the hillside. The crowd was still resting on stones, leaning against one another, holding children who had fallen asleep. No one spoke. They had come hoping for answers. They left, carrying questions that pierced deeper than they expected. Not the kind that confused, but the kind that awakened something long asleep. Jesus stood quietly, eyes scanning the sea of faces. He didn't call for applause. He didn't demand a response. He simply waited, as if giving space for the words to settle where they belonged. Then slowly, he turned and began walking down the slope. No crowd followed this time. No shouts, no fanfare, only hushed footsteps on grass and hearts too full to speak. Among the crowd, a young man clutched the corner of his cloak. He didn't understand everything Jesus had said, but he felt different, lighter somehow, as if a burden had shifted, not removed, but no longer crushing. A widow sat still, hands open in her lap. Her grief hadn't vanished, but the silence around her didn't feel so empty anymore. Jesus' words echoed inside her like a prayer she didn't know she needed. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. A boy looked up at his father. Is he going to speak again? He whispered. The father shook his head slowly. I don't know, but I think we're meant to listen now. One by one, people began to rise, some with tears, some with a strange calm, some with questions they wouldn't voice aloud, but that would stir in them for days. No one left the same, because blessing had taken a new shape, not in the form of riches or rewards, but in the form of presence. A God who saw them, a kingdom that included them, a hope that did not depend on circumstance. That night, the village was quieter than usual. Fires flickered, meals were simple, but around each table, silence spoke loudest, and in that stillness, something holy remained, not in stone tablets or temple scrolls, but in memory, in heartbeat, in the flicker of light when someone chose mercy over anger, peace over pride, love over fear. The sermon had ended, but the story was just beginning, and far beyond the hills of Galilee, the Beatitudes would continue to bloom, in kitchens, fields, streets, and homes, wherever someone dared to believe, I am poor in spirit, and still I am blessed. Lord, tonight we come not as the strong, but as the small, not with answers, but with longing, not with pride, but with hearts wide open. We want to live the way you spoke on that hillside, when you blessed the ones the world often forgets. So, we pray now shape our hearts to look like yours. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Lord, we admit our need. We let go of self-sufficiency, and we come with empty hands. Teach us the beauty of humility to walk gently, to speak kindly, to need you more than anything else. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. You see our tears. You hold the grief we hide. Comfort us in the places that still ache. Let your nearness wrap around us like a soft blanket in the night. Let sorrow become sacred ground where healing begins. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Lord, make us gentle in a world that rushes, shouts, and demands. Teach us strength that does not need to prove itself. Help us trust you when we are overlooked or misunderstood. Let meekness be our quiet strength. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. We are hungry, Lord, not for more things, but for more of you. We long to see justice roll like a river, and mercy fall like rain. Fill our souls with a holy appetite, a craving for goodness that only you can satisfy. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. We have received so much from you. Forgive us when we are quick to judge, slow to forgive. Make our hands open, our hearts soft. Let mercy flow from us as freely as it flows from you. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Create in us a clean heart, O Lord. Strip away what is false, what is hidden, what divides. Give us eyes that seek beauty, lips that speak truth, and hearts that are undivided. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. In a world full of conflict, help us build bridges, help us listen before we speak. Give us courage to love where it's hard, to stand in the middle, and to choose peace again and again. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Give us endurance, Lord, when we are mocked or misunderstood for doing what is right. Let us not lose heart. Let us remember that you see every act of faithfulness, even when no one else does. Tonight, we do not ask for a perfect life, but for a heart that looks like yours, a heart that is soft, a heart that is honest, a heart that chooses blessing, even when it looks like weakness to the world. Make us poor in spirit, that we might be rich in you. Lord Jesus, you looked at ordinary people, fishermen, mothers, workers, wanderers, and you said, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." Not try to be, not someday you'll become, but you are. So tonight, we come before you with hearts that long to live those words, to not only hear them, but to embody them in the quiet, in the everyday, in the places no one else sees. Make us salt, Lord, salt that preserves, that heals, that brings out the goodness in others. When the world around us begins to rot with bitterness and fear, let our presence slow the decay. Let our kindness flavor the atmosphere. Let our lives remind others of what is true and lasting. Help us not lose our soul, not in the rush of success, not in the pressure to please, not in the comfort of compromise. Keep us distinct and not distant, grounded in grace, yet bold with love, and make us light, not the harsh light that blinds, but the gentle glow that guides. Let your light shine through our words, through our choices, through our compassion. When we walk into a room, let peace follow. When others are lost, let us point quietly toward hope. When truth is needed, let it come from our mouths seasoned. With humility we confess, Lord, that some days we feel more like shadows than light. Some days we fade into the background, afraid to be seen, unsure how to shine. But you remind us, light doesn't earn its place, it simply shines. So remind us that even small lamps can push back great darkness, that even a whispered prayer carries your power. Teach us to be light in the way we forgive, in the way we serve, in the way we listen before we speak, and in the way we stand firm, not with anger, but with grace. When we are tempted to blend in, remind us that we are made to stand out, not for our glory, but for yours. You said, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So may our goodness not be self-centered, but God-reflecting. May our deeds not point to us, but lead others to you. Tonight, we place our lives in your hands. Shine through us, Lord. Season this world through us. And when we feel small, remind us, salt does not need to be loud. Light does not need to be big. It only needs to be true. Let us live, not to be noticed, but to be useful. Let us shine, not to impress, but to illuminate. And may the world taste and see that you are good. Father, you told us that the way is narrow, that the road to life is not wide and easy, but quiet, steep, and often unseen and still. You invite us to walk it, not because it is easy, but because it leads to you tonight. We confess we are often drawn to the wide road, the one paved with approval, comfort, control, the one where we blend in, where faith is safe and conviction is optional. But you call us higher, you call us deeper, you call us to the narrow path, the path of the kingdom. So Lord, give us courage to choose it, not just once, but every day, when no one is watching, when the crowd goes another way, when silence would be easier than truth, when kindness would cost us something real. Help us to choose what is right, even when it is not popular. Help us to love, even when it is not returned. Help us to forgive, even when it is not deserved. We do not want a faith that floats with the tide. We want roots, we want depth, we want lives that echo eternity. You said, enter through the narrow gate. So we come, Lord, tired, maybe, weak, often, but willing. We bring our fears of rejection, our need for control, our longing to be liked, and we lay them down, because the kingdom you spoke of, the kingdom of the meek, the merciful, the pure in heart, it is worth more than anything we leave behind. Remind us that the narrow way is not a lonely way. You walk it with us. You carried the cross before us. You whisper when we hesitate, you are not alone. When we stumble, lift us. When we doubt, steady us. When we grow weary, breathe life into our souls. Let our lives be marked not by applause, but by obedience, not by comfort, but by conviction. Let our faith not be loud, but loyal, not flashy, but faithful. And when the world says, take the easy way, may our hearts remember the hill where you stood, where you taught us to be different, where blessing came through surrender, where you showed us that the way up is down. So tonight, with quiet resolve, we choose the narrow path. We may walk it slowly, we may walk it with trembling, but by your grace we will walk it still. And at the end of this road, we trust we will find not just a destination, but you. Lord, here I am, not perfect, not put together, not strong, just willing to lay down what I cannot carry, willing to trust the one who sees beyond what I see. You spoke words that turned the world upside down, blessing the broken, calling the meek strong, welcoming the lowly into your kingdom. And tonight, I surrender. I surrender my need to control, the plans I've held too tightly, the dreams I've guarded with fear, the image I try so hard to maintain. You are not asking for performance, you are asking for presence. A heart open, a will yielded, a soul that whispers, have your way. So, I give you my fear of failure, of rejection, of not being enough. I give you my pride that masks a strength but trembles underneath. I give you my doubt, the questions I don't know how to answer, and, in return, I receive peace. Not peace that depends on outcome, but peace that depends on you. When the road is unclear, teach me to follow, not force. When the silence stretches long, teach me to wait, not wander. When you call me to speak, teach me to obey, not shrink back. I want to trust you like the lilies trust the rain, like the sparrows trust the sky, not with anxiety, but with quiet, childlike confidence. Your ways are not my ways. Your timing is not mine, but your heart is always good. So I surrender what I understand and what I don't, what I want and what you want to give instead. Teach me that surrender is not loss, it is the beginning of life. That trust is not weakness, it is worship. Let me wake each day with this prayer on my lips, your will, not mine, and go to sleep each night whispering, you held me again today. Lord, take what I cannot fix, heal what I cannot reach, lead me where I cannot see, and be all that I am not. I don't need every answer. I just need to know you're with me. That is enough. So here I am, again and again, laying it all down. Not with resistance, but with rest. Not with fear, but with faith. I surrender. I trust. You are good, and that is enough.